Hi everybody, another video today, hopefully not too long. I've decided today to go about changing the chain on the bike. There's a lot of videos out there, but not one with a Ducati Scrambler. The chain doesn't particularly need changing because of wear. I'm just fed up of having to clean the rust off this standard chain. You know, it rusts almost overnight, so I'm not going to be doing the sprocket or the cog at the back, because it doesn't need changing. I know a lot of people have an issue with that, but you know, it just doesn't need changing. I just fancy changing the chain to a gold. I'll show you the gold chain I've decided to go for. There you go, it's a D.I.D 520 VX3. I picked that up online, and that was only £56 for the Ducati Scrambler. And I also picked up a chain breaker riveter tool from US Pro online. You see this style, the D.I.D's own brand is exactly the same as this one here, and that was £20, so not a lot. And I've downloaded some instructions because it doesn't come with instructions on how to what all these bits do. So yeah, so that's all there. So today is to put this chain on. I'll pop that out of the box, and we'll have a look at that first. So here's the chain out of the box. What's interesting is the chain. Let's start with the chain first. There you go, gold links, D.I.D Japan, sturdy old chain. I mean, the quality of this compared to the one that's standard on the bike is night and day. But what's also interesting, they supply you with a riveting style pin, this one here, and also the push-on style pin if you prefer to go that way. So that's quite good that you get both in the pack. And there's the X-ring seals in the packet there, and there was a tube of grease somewhere. I'll have to find that. It's here somewhere. Where is it gone? Well, I'll find that in a second. Oh, there it is, right down there. So let's pop that on there. So there's there. So both links supplied. So if you don't have one of these tools and you don't have an issue riding with those styles, I mean, I've been on plenty bikes with these pins, and they're fine, but I'm going to be riveting the pin on. Anyway, so the first job I'm going to do is I've got the bike with these bobbins on a stand. So what I'm going to first do is pop the bike on the side stand, take these off, loosen the nut, slacken off the chain, and then pop these back in, so I can go back on this stand, but the chain will be loose, and I could then fit the new chain with the bike still sitting in the stand for now. And then I'm going to remove the chain guard. You don't have to, but I'm going to do that to give it a clean, and also the sprocket cover to give it a good clean once the chain's off in here. So I'll so I won't show you doing that, but basically these are just 3 Allen bolts. A piece of plastic comes off, and here again is this 1 Allen bolt here, and 1 tucked in there, that little rusty head one down there, and they just come off. And the wheel nut, as you know, just not super loose, just, you know, 1 turn would be enough to pull the adjusters, to pull the wheel in and be in that slack position. So I'll do that now and then we'll get back. Okay, so here we are. So what I've done, I've taken the sprocket guard off with the 3 bolts. I've taken the chain guard off here with the 2 bolts. I've loosened the wheel nut over here. I've loosened the wheel nut, popped the bobbin back on, which enabled me to wind the bolt in, and as you can see, the chain is now slack, so when I put the new chain on, I won't be fighting against that, and then I can adjust it. All right, so what you would need to do now, there's lots of ways to go about this. The rivet press says to push a pin straight out. Now I'm sure it'll be able to do that, but I think it would be wise to grind off one of these rivets here to make the job a lot easier to do. So I think on the rear sprocket here, I'm going to put a little tea towel around the area, and with a little Dremel cutting wheel, I'm just going to shave down one of these rivets here. In fact, let me see if I can find the original. There it is, right there. Right here, you can see the original rivet. So I might, that's probably softer, so I'll probably just grind one of these down, and I'll show you that done in a second. So there you go, it's done. I'll see if I get in there close. All I've done was just shave off the top of that rivet there, so that should push out easily. And all I used was one of these Dremel type tools with a little tiny cutting disc there. That took literally, 60 seconds to come off. So then I'll show you over here what we're going to do next. Right, with the tool, it's not clear. It comes in parts, and if you look at this top part, there's an A and B. Everyone talks about lining up with A or B, and I never understood what that meant really. So well, let me show you what happens. With the A, if you put this tool in on the A, this would be pushing directly in line with the hole. So A would be where you would have it if you're pushing the rivet out, which is what we're going to do now. So you would line it up with A. If you then slid that across to B, you would be pushing against the flat part here. And that's where you would be pushing when you would be riveting. Obviously, if you were on A, you would just be pushing the rivet out. So it's as simple as that. So that's what the A and B means. So to push the rivet out, on this particular kit, you've got 3 sizes of pin. So I imagine, because I've not read that anywhere, you choose the pin that corresponds with the size of your rivet. Now that's quite easy to do, because if you take your new rivet and have a look, I imagine, eyeballing it, that it's probably this one here, the larger one in the kit. So if I line those up, you see, that's probably that side. So what you then do is you pop this in here. In fact, it'd be easier for me to show you over the bike, so just give us a second. Okay, let's see if we can show you this. So what you need to do, I've moved the chain around now, so you're at the bottom, so you can get to it. So it's this link here we have to pop off. So what you will need to do, this piece would have to go around the back and line up with the A. It's not going to be easy to do with a phone in your hand. And then this piece here, with the pin push inserted in, would then, this little Allen bolt is the marker for the A or the B lineup. You slide it on this tool and line it up with A, and then wind the bolt in so the pin is going to be pushing on the rivet you're trying to remove. So I'll line that up and I'll show you what that looks like. If you look at that now, you'll see here that the Allen bolt is lined up with A, and around the side here you'll see that that pin is now pushed on to the rivet that you're trying to push out. So by putting a spanner on this part and a socket on here, if you were to wind this, this would push the rivet out, which I'm going to do now, and I'll stop halfway through so you can see what I mean. So there we have it. So what I'm doing here is I'm winding the socket on here, and obviously by holding the spanner at the same time, you are pushing that pin through, and I'm already halfway through. There's no, because we've ground the top of the rivet off, there's no effort involved here. This is just firm turning of the ratchet. So I'll do the rest of that and show you what we're left with. And there you have it. So the rivet pin literally falls to the floor and the chain drops off. So I'm going to pull the chain off, lay it on the floor and show you that, and then we'll have a look at the sprockets, and I'm going to basically give them a clean, and then we'll start again. So I'll get the chain off and show you what that looks like. So there's the two chains side by side. I was lining them up just to see, out of interest, what the difference was between the two lengths. But as you can see, bearing in mind the extra link, our rivet, this is the full length of the original chain, including the riveted link, and our new chain is still to receive that link. There we go. And they supply you with the exact length of chain. So yeah, because I've seen sometimes people have to remove 2 or 3 links. We don't have to do that. So yeah, so over on the bike, here we've got the sprocket here. I'm going to give them a clean. I'm going to use some paraffin with a rag and give this a good old clean up first. And we'll just slip the new chain on afterwards. So I'll get that done, show you that, get the chain on, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so that's done. Well, let me tell you, that's probably the hardest part of the whole job, cleaning. Jesus, wow. So anyway, I've given the sprocket here a good old clean. Lots of crud gets in there, regardless how much washing of your bike you might do, and especially in here. I mean, inside here where the sprocket would splash mud and crud, it's caked on in there. So I gave it a good old soak and some brake cleaner and some paraffin and lots of rags on the floor to get all that crud out. And there it is. It's looking clean enough for me. So that's done. So what I'm going to do now is snake the chain, the new chain, back on, and I will get the links to meet up on the sprocket to hold them there for now, and we'll take it from there. So let me get the chain on first. So there it is. There's the chain back on. Well, let me tell you another thing. Right, when I loosened the rear wheel and I wound that back wheel in to make the chain loose, I thought that new chain would just slip on and be the right length. Well, it's amazing how slack your chain gets, because I had to really crank that back wheel in order to get these 2 links on the sprocket. So it's incredible how much stretch you get out of a chain. So here they are lined up. Here's a good place to do that, because that enables you to get the new link greased and on, and to get the retainer plate pressed, not necessarily pressed, you won't be able to press it there, pushed on, friction tight, so then you can snake the chain back under to about this location where you can do the proper pressing. So this is a good place just to hold it as a third hand. So I'll bring the new link over in the grease and we'll have a little look at what we're going to do here now. So here's the new link here, and we've got to pop a little grease, a couple of O-rings on the end of this here, and then we can pop it round the back to hold this chain in place. So again, I'm not going to be able to do that with the phone in my hand. So grease on here, 2 O-rings, and then slide that round the back of that chain. I'll do that now. So there's the link with the two O-rings and the grease. Now see if I can do that with the camera in my hand. And you just pop that round the back and it should line up, but it's not easy to do with the camera. I should really get a tripod going. No, I'm not going to be able to do that here. So I'm going to basically pop that back on the sprocket, push that round the back, and I'll be back. There you go, so that's done. So that's just pushed on with the two O-rings and the grease. So on the front here, we've got to put some more grease around this pin. Just splash it on, you know, do that, and put on the new, well, they're X rings, aren't they, of course, but put on the new O-rings here like that, and you've got a plate to be pushed on, which you're not going to be able to do, but you will be able to push it on to hold it so you can spin the chain to a location where we're going to try and press the plate on. So I'm going to try and squeeze with both hands to see if I can get that to sit on there tight, and then spin the chain round to put it in this location down here. So I'll do that now. All right, so what you've got to do now is you've spun the pin that you used to push the rivet out the other way round, and then it fits inside this pushing plate, which, if you can see, sits over the link, so you can crank it and push that plate squarely onto the rivets, not too far, because you want to end up with a similar distance as one of these other links, which we'll measure after. That's easier to do but harder to explain. It's quite straightforward. Just give it 4 or 5 cranks and then you can take it off and have a look how far you've gone. But all you're doing is pushing with this plate against the link that we've just seated onto the new rivet. So let's give it a crank and see what happens. As you might be able to see there, I've pushed that on. It's probably not far off, but probably could do with a bit more. But well, I'll get the calipers and I'll measure, because what you're looking to do is to push this plate on the same distance. So this measurement here would be similar to, say, this measurement. So you're not binding the link. So I'll have a measure and see how far out we are. Because what you've also got to remember, you've got to leave enough meat here for you to flare out these two rivets. So I'll have a measurement and see what happens. Right, so I had a measure. So on the regular link, it was 16.79 millimeters. And with the link I'm pressing on, it's 17.22. So we're almost there. So I think another half turn, we should be the same. So let me have a go at that. Right, so I've had another go at pressing that on. You can see it's further on now. And the other one was 16.79, and now we're at 16.84. So I think that's good enough. So that's on there, pushed on, all looking good, a nice bit of meat to flare over. So what you now have to do, you're going to keep this piece in to use as that's the flaring tip, and you remember you're going to move to the B slot, so you're going to be pushing against, let's find that. So as you look on here, if you line it up with B, you'll be pushing against metal. So obviously when you're pushing that rivet against metal, it will resist and flare over. Now you're going to get it to flare over. Now remember, people agree or disagree with this. To get this plate to slide on those rivets took a monumental effort. So it's a tight friction fit. So as soon as you start flaring these rivets, this is never coming off. So I personally don't get too hung up on, you know, I would match the two, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. We'll see if I change my mind on it when I do it. But you know, that took a lot of effort to squeeze that plate on. So with a couple of cranks, I'm sure that's going to mushroom over just fine and never come off. Because remember, you want to allow this link to carry on squiggling around like the others. So let me have a go at that and we'll see if if I've changed my mind when I'm done. Well, there it is. Both riveted on. It takes quite a bit of effort to turn that tool. You think you're overdoing it and you're not. You really got to do, you know, 2 or 3 full turns. I'll just show you a measurement just out of interest. So these rivets now are, what does that say in there? No, let's 0 it first. And that rivet there is saying 5.4, and that one's saying 5.39, 5.4. You can't really compare it to one of theirs because theirs is like splurged and they're 5.46. But remember, they're 5.4. I'll show you. If you go back to the original rivet, we've got a spare here. So if we 0 that and measure a spare, that's 5.1, 5.09. So, and that was 5.4. So it's definitely flared over. And like I said, that's such a tight fit through the link that any flare will stop that coming off. So there we go, that's done. I'm going to I'll show you a close up first. So there we go, there's the links flared over, and there's this, difficult to see here, there we go, you see it from the top. That does look slightly pushed in more on the right. Let me just see if that makes any difference to the freedom of movement on the link. Well, no, the link moves. So yeah, that's bizarre. Let's have a look. Just the camera angle. Was that a real thing? Because when I'm looking at it, let me just have a look myself. See, that doesn't. Was I looking at a different link? I can't see that now. Maybe that was the angle. No, I don't know, how strange. How strange is when I look at the link, I can't see. That looks fine. Yeah, so not a hard job, but not you will run into difficulties because bending over this metal and using these tools, if you haven't used one before, it's quite, you don't seem to have the leverage with the adjustable spanner and the ratchet. So you think you're overdoing it, and these are quite tough bits of metal, so they need some leverage. So anyway, that's there. Keep an eye on it. Obviously you will need to adjust the chain because this will loosen up, I'm sure, over the first few rides. I'm going to adjust the chain, and remembering to get your reference points and make sure it's equal on both sides. Make sure you've got the right amount of what I think is 27, 30 mil. I don't get too hung up on that sort of thing. So I roughly, you know, 25 to 30 mil of what would you call that, sag or movement in chain when it's on the ground. Should be fine. That's how I've been riding it for 6 years that way. It's been fine. Anyway, I love the chain. I hope it doesn't rust out every 2 seconds like the previous one, and I'll just keep an eye on that link and see how it goes. Yeah, not the greatest video, a bit tricky to do I'm gonna have to try. I don't know, because if I was to stick it on a tripod and just park the tripod on the side and let it run, whether that would be better doing it that way or not, I don't know. Anyway, what do you think?